What if you could generate unlimited influencer ads without mailing out a single product? For e-commerce brands, that means endless influencer product photos and videos on demand, the exact fuel Facebook and TikTok's algorithms thrive on. And now, thanks to Google's new Nano Banana image generator, this is very possible. In this video, I'll show you how we built an n8n system that takes photos of your influencers and automatically turns them into high-quality ads of them holding your products, all without a camera, a studio, or even the product itself. All right, let's jump in. All right, let's kick things off with a demo of this workflow. So we're gonna pretend that I am a marketer for the famous D2C company Stanley with their famous mugs. And let's say we already have a bench of influencers that we have relationships with. So we have them here. All we need for this is a single image of those influencers. Then let's say we launched a new product and we need to get a ton of ad creative built out for this new product. That's where this workflow can shine. So let's execute the workflow. We're gonna get started by uploading the image right here of the new product. So we launched this pink mug and we're going to submit that. Now it's going to kick off the workflow, and this n8n workflow is going to loop through each of our influencers that we have uploaded to our Google Drive, and it's going to loop through them with Nano Banana and place the product that we're launching with our influencers in a lifelike, very effective ad creative style output. Okay, so that workflow has finished running, and now let's check the output. So first we have our old man influencer holding his Stanley cup and drinking from it. Pretty impressive. Next up, we have our young woman influencer, again sitting at a coffee shop based off this original photo. Pretty amazing. Next, the young blonde, again just from a single photo generating ad creative. And last, our young man from this original photo. So you can see how you can generate literally infinite advertising creative, and you can tweak how you want this creative to come out just through prompting. So it's pretty spectacular results. If you want to snag this full n8n template for free, just go to our school community. You can join it for free, and then you'll go to n8n templates, click on this video, and you'll be able to download the JSON for this specific template. All right, with that, let's jump into the node by node build with Lucas.
The first thing I want to do before we dive into the n8n build out is give you a brief overview of the Nano Banana ad creative generator system. Starting with number one here, we have to get started setting up all influencer images as references inside a folder in Google Drive. If you remember back to the demo, we had each of these 4 influencer images set up here that got turned into these outputs. So you need to go out, find some influencer images, likely from like a royalty-free website like Unsplash, or you can even leverage AI to generate these images for you to get more ad creative. Once you have that set up and uploaded into the folder, you're good to continue. The next part here is going to be looping over each of those influencer reference images and using Gemini's API to edit our Stanley product, this tumbler cup, onto the top of our reference influencers. And so this is going to be based off the example provided here in the Gemini docs where we combine multiple images together. Basically, we're taking these 2 images as input, but for us, it's going to be our Stanley cup and the reference influencer. We're going to prompt it to get placed in the hands of our influencer and set up a scene for that final image. And so that's what we're going to be doing here in this middle portion through all of these steps here. The big one is going to be this node that calls into the Gemini API. And finally, once we have that image generated, we're then going to take that, save it back to Google Drive in our output folder. So then we have our ad creative ready to get uploaded into, Google ads, Facebook ads, or anywhere else we want to distribute this. Let's go over to n8n so you can get a full breakdown of how all data is flowing through this entire system. Starting with our trigger here, this is a simple form trigger inside of n8n that has a single form element. This is going to be called image. It's a file upload element type, and it's required for us. And so what we do to kick off this automation when we click Start Workflow is we're prompted a file selector where we can upload our reference product image. In this case, it's going to be our Stanley cup. After that's done, we do have to do a little bit of data cleanup here, where we're going to transform those image bytes into what's called a base 64 string. You don't need to know too much about that, but this is something that's required in order to work with this node here that's going to be calling into Gemini's API to go ahead and create and edit our images. So this is going to be a node you can find just by searching for file and look for extract from file, move file to base 64, and then you're going to be able to plug your data in here. And so if I pull this up, we can see that we're moving our image field here from the left-hand side, and we're going to output this as a base 64 string in our data field. So that's saved as a string. We can reference it later on as we progress through the automation. The next node here is going to be listing out our influencer images, and this is just going to be using the built-in n8n Google Drive node. I have my credential already set up here, and so I'm not going to be going through those steps right now, but definitely let me know in the comments if you would like to see a standalone video on how to set this up. So make sure you have your credential there, go to the file/folder resource under this dropdown, use the search operation, and then we're going to leave this as the default search file/folder name. I'm not going to put anything into the search query here because we want to load up all files inside this influencers folder we have defined here in Google Drive. The next step we need to do here is actually add in a filter so we're able to restrict the search to give us all files in the folder that we want. And so under Google Drive again, if we come to this URL at the top and grab the very last section of the URL after /folders, we're going to be able to grab this string here, which is our folder ID. You take that, paste that into this field, and make sure that you have this specified as by ID. That's everything we need to get our influencers listed out. And so if I pull this up again, we can see our output here is going to be 4 separate items that each contain an ID and the name of the file. And so that matches up with our 4 image files we have right here. Let's move on to the next part, which is going to be the main looping logic that controls generating our ad creative. The next node we have is this loop over batches node that is going to take the 4 output items from here. And so we have these 4 items here in JSON. It's going to split those out and perform all of these steps you see right here for each of those 4 items. So there's a bit of sequential logic we need to perform, and that's why we're using this loop node that you see specified on this side. So we start the loop, we drag out from this loop path right here, and we're going to go ahead and download that full image that we got the ID for. Because if we look at this, we only have the ID available right now, and we need to get those raw bytes of the image for later processing. So we'll use this node directly connected to Google Drive, where we specify our file resource. We're going to do the download operation, and then we're going to specify the ID of the file we want to download. And so if we just do json.id here in this JavaScript expression, we're going to be able to grab out that dynamic ID for each influencer image we're working to iterate over. After that's done, we have to do something similar here to what we did with our main Stanley Cup product image, where we convert it to a base 64 string. Because both our product image and our influencer image are going to get passed into the API request going out to Gemini 2.5 Flash image. And so what we do again is we use that same extract from file node, and we're going to convert our file to a base 64 string. So we have our data item here as input that was downloaded from Google Drive, and we're just going to go ahead and output that as data again, but this is going to be a text field that represents all of those bytes included in the image we just downloaded. Once that's done, we then have the full setup ready to go ahead and pass those images as a base 64 string off to the Google Gemini API to edit this image using the Nano Banana or the Gemini 2.5 image flash model. So if I pull up this HTTP request node, we're going to walk through the exact setup needed to make that request. And so we're going to specify this as a post request going out to this URL. So this is under the generative-language.googleapis.com. We have the setup here for the model we want to use. And then for the very last part of the URL, we're going to be specifying Gemini 2.5-flash-image-preview. And then :generate content at the very end to specify this is going to be a Gen AI operation. Going down below here is going to be where we need to set up our authentication and provide our credentials in order to work with the Google Gemini API. I have this set up already, but I will go through the steps with you right now on how to configure this. In order to set this up, make sure you select generic credential type, go to header auth from the second dropdown, and then go ahead and select create a new credential if you're making this for the first time. If you already have a credential set up for Gemini's API, you can select that, but I'm going to show you the setup steps we need to do right now. So this is going to be our Gemini API credential. It's header auth, and so we need to specify both a name and a value. So let's come over here to Google AI Studio or aistudio.google.com. And then if you come over here to the left-hand side, you can click Get API Key. And this is going to give you the instructions you need to follow in order to set up an authenticated credential inside of n8n. I'm first going to go ahead and copy this first part of the string here that is appearing before the colon, but not including the colon. And that's going to be the name of the header we need to add in. So I'll paste that in right here. If I go back and we see we need to dynamically insert our Gemini API key. So you can click here under Create API Key, go through the steps to set this up in your Google Cloud Console project. And once you have that API key, you're going to want to just paste that in here as the value. I already have mine, so I'm not going to go through this again, but make sure you save this and then choose that from the dropdown here under your header auth. That's going to allow you to authenticate any requests you make for using any of these models in Gemini's API. Let's scroll down to the bottom here because this is going to be the important part where we specify the JSON body to dynamically build out our request. If you remember from before, the approach we want to follow is going to be mimicking this setup here for number 4, where we combine multiple images into one. In order to do this, we have to provide a prompt, reference image number 1, and reference image number 2 all into the API request we're building in order for Gemini and Nano Banana to be able to successfully process this. And so that's going to be how we build it up here. We have this JSON object set up here that starts with content, that's an array, and then we have this sub object here that's going to define the parts of the request we need to send in. The important thing we start with here is going to be this text part of the request, and that's where we insert our prompt that we want to tell Google Gemini to go ahead and combine our product image with the provided influencers. Just very briefly here, going through the prompt, this mentions create an image where the cup or tumbler in image 1 is being held by the person in the second image, like they're about to take a drink from the cup. The person should be sitting at a table at a cafe or a coffee shop and is smiling warmly while looking at the camera. This is not a professional photo. It should feel like a friend is taking the picture of the person in the second image. And so this is something you're going to need to experiment with depending on the type of product you're setting up. I tuned this prompt a little bit more for my Stanley tumbler cup in order to get the desired effect I wanted in my output images that you see here. Depending on the image you're doing, you will need to change this. So just pay close attention to this, and that's the spot where you update it. The next 2 parts here are going to be 2 objects where we define our inline data that's getting passed in. Number 1 is going to be referencing our PNG file from that product image we uploaded into n8n when we submitted the form, and we're going to go ahead and grab that base64 string that we built up from before on this previous node. After that, we're going to come back here and grab the other base64 string that we built up for our influencer reference image and make sure we use this $node operator in order to get the last influencer that we need to process. That way, as we're looping over this, we're going to be able to reference the right influencer image. And that's all there is to that. Feel free just to go ahead and copy and paste this and make a tweak to your text file to avoid the complexity of building this request manually by hand. And so we're actually giving away this full automation for free. If you want to download this template for yourself, just join our school community for free. It's that first link in the description of this YouTube video. Once you're in the community, go to the n8n template section, find the post that matches the title of this YouTube video, and then once you pull it up, you're going to be able to see our resources attached to it, like the n8n template, the output, and any other prompts you need in order to set this up. So highly encourage you to do that, and we have a lot of smart people in here working on really cool AI projects. Moving forward, now that we have our request built out, that is going to get sent off to the Google Gemini API for each influencer we have. And so we can see here, this ran 4 times over the whole full loop, and we generated 4 separate images. And so after the request is made, we can look at the output, and there's a bunch of different data returned. What we're interested here is underneath this candidates, content, parts, and the final inline data we get returned here, that is going to be a base64 string of what Google Gemini generated for us. And so if I move forward here to set result, we're just going to use a simple JavaScript expression where we look to this candidates parts array and extract that first data field we're able to see that came back to us as an image. Sometimes Gemini likes to throw in some extra text here, and that's why this extra filtering here is necessary to get this working. It's just going to make it more reliable and reduce errors when you're generating a large number of images. So now that we have our base 64 string in hand that came back to us from Google Gemini, we then need to convert this into an image file for us to then upload to Google Drive. And so if I search for file again here, we're going to see this convert to file node that is going to take a base 64 string and move that into a file. I can pull this up and we're going to see that we have our image result from the previous node set up here. And so all I did was drag that here into our base 64 input field. I left our output field as the default data value, and we can see we have this 2.43 megabyte file of our final generated image. And so there's our guy that matches our man influencer reference image we made before. And that's going to be what then is sent off to Google Drive here in our final upload image node. And so going through this really quickly, we're going to be uploading our file resource using the upload operation. We're going to take our data field, which is the name of this on the top left-hand side here. And we're just going to give it a simple name, just influencer image, give it a number, and dynamically build that out depending on the run index of this node. And so as this runs a number of different times, it's going from 0 to 3 based off the index of the influencer images I provided. That's going to get incremented each time it processes, so we can give each file here a different name. Indexes are 0 based, and so that's why we do the +1 at the end here, so we get a nice clean 1, 2, 3, 4 image at the very end when we upload to Google Drive. Final things you need to set up here are going to be your parent drive, so just make sure that's connected to the final destination you need this to go, and then just plug in the parent folder ID, which you can grab once again from the URL of Google Drive. And so that's this 1z-at value. Copy that and then can paste that in. So that's all there is to it, to setting up this AI workflow to bulk generate ad creative images using Nano Banana or the Gemini 2.5 Flash image model that was just released.
All right, before you go, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Seriously, do it, because we're going to be breaking down all of the AI automations that we use to run all of our businesses. They're super helpful, and we're going to break down exactly how we do them on this YouTube channel. So make sure to like and then subscribe, and then you'll get notified when we publish new workflows that can make your businesses run 20 times more efficiently, just like we're seeing here at the recap and the other businesses that we're running. The other item is join our school community for free. The link's in the description. You'll be able to get this template, this automation that we just ran through in this video, completely for free. You can go to school and navigate to the video that you want, and then you can download the JSON output for the n8n automation. With that, you can upload it into your n8n, clone it, and then tune it for your business and your use cases. So like and subscribe, join our free community to get this automation for yourself, and we'll see you in the next video.